Yo, thanks for doing this. I wanted to get somebody who used to play there, play at RFK on the day that we get some renderings. So you tell me, did it make you take you back to a to yesteryear when you played in RFK?
Well, not really, because I was there when they were tearing the place down, so to speak.
Hmm.
And I walked around the stadium and I've done different things at the stadium, and I have those memories. I'm excited about the new look. I'm excited about the location of this stadium. It's going to be very interesting to be in a dome, which some people like, some people don't. But of course, if you're a player, you're not going to be mad not to play in the snow and the rain and the cold and the mud and everything else. You may as well see what the athletes look like at their best. And it looks like everything's going to be. And I'm always curious about stadiums that have big glass walls. Indianapolis is like that, and I think it looks like from the rendering where the big W is that might be the case here with the new stadium. But it certainly certainly lives up to what we expect as far as greatness goes when it comes to design.
I think the one question I had in terms of the windows, because obviously I get it, it's going to be the roof, but they want it to at least feel sort of outdoorsy. Is where's the sun?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm not smart enough. Obviously, with Dallas, it's like a constant like what how do they do this?
Hey,
Um,
listen, I was going there with this. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up. Jerry Jones builds a multi-billion-dollar stadium and he can't afford a curtain.
right.
Can't afford a curtain to cover up. It is disconcerting to the players. Everybody wants they want to feel for the outdoor, but what about the people on the field? What has anybody talked to the players and say, "Hey, how does this affect you?" It's almost like when they build something or they design something, they do it for the fans, and I think that's wonderful. But what about the players? Like I said, the whole situation with the lighting in Dallas, I thought when he built the new stadium, it would change.
Right.
I played there many, many years ago. It was the same thing. And it's amazing. When you line up in that little window of 15 yards, it's hard to see down the field. Or if you're trying to catch a pass and you're running a slant and that sun's in your eyes right there. I guess if you're building a dome stadium, there's really no reason to have an area where you can't be able to function as an athlete on the field without interruption. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. It's like, Jerry, the stadium costs 2 billion. What could a curtain cost? I mean,
Right.
I guess that's the question I ask myself all the time.
Right.
And as far as glass walls go, you're building a dome stadium. Okay, if you want a feel for the outdoors, bring in plants. Put some plants and trees inside the stadium if you want to feel for the outdoors. So I don't know why and what the motivation is for that, but I mean the renderings look beautiful though. They really do.
I think my guess is like there. It doesn't sound like this is going to be a retractable roof situation,
Uh-huh.
which I get it, but it's like a
Fine.
lot of extra money. But it would be fun to play some games outside. At least it's like it's not a compromise, but it's sort of a compromise to some like a minor degree to make you feel like you're not just in this big space.
Well, you're going to play games outside. You're going to play in New York. You're going to play in Philadelphia.
Right.
You're probably, you could play in Buffalo. You could play in New England. There's lots of places you can play outside. I think, having the chance to have an indoor stadium where it isn't just, and there's the business side of this as well. So if you want to have concerts or you want to have events outside of the world of football, if you have a enclosed stadium, you have much greater opportunity to generate revenue with an indoor stadium where the environment is controlled,
Sure.
as opposed to a stadium that is open. And basically, you'll play soccer there. Maybe you'll freeze the field and have a hockey game somewhere. But it limits you as far as outside activities go from a revenue generating standpoint. So,
Yeah.
like I say, I think, we're talking 5 years down the road, really. And I think it's going to be exciting. It's new. I think it creates an energy around the Commanders. This year was a very disappointing year for the players, the fans, and everybody else involved. And so, from my perspective, this sort of gets the juices flowing again about our football team.
I don't know if this was the plan at always to release it on this day, but the second I saw the pictures, I was like, oh, you know what? We're not going to talk about the football team for a couple days, which is good for all of us because you got to step away. But yeah, it's mostly a disappointing conversation. And the stadium is all upbeat at this point.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think strategically it's well timed as far as the release goes.
yeah,
You know, so much George Allen was a master at this, Ben. He was a master, because you didn't have the wall-to-wall coverage back in the 70s that you have today. So George Allen strategically almost every month used to do something that would create conversation about the Redskins. He would have a signing. He would be somewhere. He had me fly. This is, and you've seen pictures of it with Andre the Giant. He had me fly to New York to be with Andre the Giant, and George talked about signing him to a contract so he could come in and block field goals and extra points. And I did that in the winter. And that was one of the geniuses of George Allen, was to create this situation where I'm going to have people talking about my football team. And that was one of the things that he did with me.
you can't see it because it's kind of small, but in my fantasy football team logo, I swear to you, that is you and Andre the Giant. Because I saw that, I saw that a few years ago, and I was like, "This is an unbelievable picture," and
biggest
it's
human being
football.
I've biggest human being I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's
And he
amazing.
had he had that hair that it looked like a globe. I mean, it was just the world is smaller than his head was. And his hands were, I mean, they engulf you. I mean, he picked me up like a baby. I mean, it was
That's
400
what's so
some odd
funny.
pounds.
You're a professional athlete. It looks like
Yeah, I'm
you're a
200,
kid.
I'm 200 pounds. And it's like I'm a toy. I'm a little doll in his hand.
That's
Wonderful,
epic.
wonderful guy though. But I mean, just it was. There's actually a documentary out about how the challenges of his life. When you're that big, I see all the guys, Wemby and all those guys in the NBA. People don't stop and think that, most things are built not for people of that size. It's like, for example, go downtown to DC, okay, and try and pull an SUV into a parking garage without trying to take the rack off the top.
Right.
I mean, just things were smaller then. Now everybody's bigger and everything is bigger.
No doubt. I used to think about that all the time when I covered the NBA. In the last couple of seconds I have you here, obviously I'd love to talk to you about the offense. Obviously, they made a big
Sure.
change. Cliff Kingsbury out, David Blau in. I don't know which is more interesting to you, the change or the fact that they're bringing a 30-year-old who's never done this before. But I'll leave it to you. Where do you what stood out to you for that whole situation?
I think both situations are interesting. It's really hard to hold Cliff accountable offensively for the woes that we had. When you don't have players, it's hard to be able to run an offense.
Right.
When you don't have continuity, you don't have consistency, it's hard to build going forward. But I think Dan felt like that they wanted a change. They wanted a different look. Obviously, he's worked with Jayden. I think that's smart. A lot of probably the communication will stay the same. Maybe the design and the way the offense will be integrated and the way they're going to call games will be different because every coordinator has a different way of calling games. We saw it in Detroit on the offensive and defensive sides when there were changes made, not necessarily for the better, but for change's sake up there. I think the hiring of David is exciting and interesting, brings a new perspective. I'm sure, listen, I thought Dan Quinn did an incredible job having this football team fight at the end of that season, every game. They weren't quitting. They
Right.
didn't mail it in. They fought their rear ends off. We just didn't have the people to be able to do the things that we needed to do to win football games in a consistent manner. And that's a credit to the coach and to the staff and to the players as well. So it's an exciting new opportunity for Jayden and David. And DJ, as a matter of fact, Williams is now going to
Yeah.
be the quarterback coach, which is, certainly some great pedigree there. And so, like I say, it's interesting to me on both sides. I'm sure Cliff will wind up maybe an opportunity to be one of the head coaches. Gosh, there's 8 places left. So there's opportunities, and he's done some great things. Did it in Arizona. Look what he did with Jayden last year. Like I said, it's very difficult to look at the body of Cliff's work and say, okay, last year was an aberration. I mean, it really was. People were hurt all the time. Every game you had somebody else being injured and key players. And it's tough to be able to operate an offense in that regard. So it will be very interesting for us going forward.
We have no idea what David Blau's offense is going to be. I presume Dan Quinn and Adam Peters had this discussion, but
Yeah.
he obviously was with Cliff, he was with Ben Johnson, with Kevin O'Connell, and he had a career
A lot of
both.
great coach, a lot of great learning opportunities. They're all wonderful offensive minds. They really are. And we're basically, but we're in a copycat business.
Right,
Like for example, the Buffalo game against New England. Buffalo's going to have to run the football. Is that going to be a mystery? No.
right.
Brock Purdy's going to try and get the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. Is that going to be a mystery? No. In this situation, like I say, at least the verbiage and the terminology will be the same. The design of the offense and the way they will attack defenses will probably be a little bit different because everybody likes to put their stamp on it.
Is there something for you? Obviously, Jayden is the center, the sun, the earth, the moon, all those things. Is there something you would say, hey, for him specifically, I would try to do more of this, less of that, anything along those lines?
Well, the more of this and the less of that had to do with the design of the offense a little bit. I mean, he ran a fair amount. The read option was something people are going to be familiar with. I think he's going to probably wind up having to work from the pocket a little bit more, maybe a little more play action to move him and give him half the field to work with. I mean, Joe Gibbs did that with me. He did it with Doug. He did it with Rip. Did it with all of us. We're all different types of quarterbacks. I was, this is sort of tongue in cheek. I was a little bit more mobile than Doug and Rip, okay, uh, in that regard. So
Yeah,
our offense, had me move around a little bit more than he did with those guys. They work a lot from the pocket and were incredibly efficient at what they did.
sure.
It'll be interesting to see how David approaches this teaching process with Jayden as far as what they want him to do and where they want him to be able to work from as far as throwing the football. I think, he just got out of sorts at the end of the season last year. That the game he came back against Minnesota, he took off a lot and really, instead of moving to try and get the ball out of his hands, he was just moving, I think, to just protect himself.
Right.
And I think now with a new mindset, he'll be able to go in and be the quarterback we saw in 2024, the guy that throws the ball down the field really well. And who did he have to throw to? I mean, really, like I said, Zach gets hurt, Terry's out, this guy's here, that guy's gone. I thought our two young running backs really did admirable jobs, very good jobs. Both of them, Bill and Rodriguez. I think they're both, two really, really good, solid young backs. But, you've got older players on the defensive side of the ball. You're always looking for offensive linemen. You're going to probably need a tight end. You look at the tight end position, starter was older, outside pass rusher, older, middle linebacker, older, corner. Marshawn really never developed into anything. So
Right.
there's pieces. Adam has to do something this year because this is the year economically that he can go do something. We're coming up in year 3 of Jayden's contract, which maybe gives you one more year before you have to make a big monetary commitment to him. So, this is going to be a critical year for management with people, as well as a learning process for the offense. And I think also, I think Dan wants to hire a defensive coordinator. I think Dan Campbell and Dan Quinn both took over different aspects of the football team, the offense on one side, the defense on the other. But then again, you're the head coach, you're the CEO. And I analogize it this way. If you're the CEO of a company and all of a sudden you have to go run the sales division, what about every other aspect and the job of the CEO are you going to be able to do to love? Because you don't have enough time in a day. Not that you can't do it, but there's not enough time in a day
Yeah.
just to do those things. So that's why you delegate. And that's why you find the people you want to be able to do the job.
I can see why they had you on TV doing Monday Night Football and stuff like that. No, I'm just kidding. I really
I love
appreciate.
this. Ben, I love this game. I love
Oh,
our football team. I love this game. We've got exciting rounds of playoffs coming up. I think the sleeper for me is the Houston Texans if CJ Stroud decides not to play like a deer in headlights. I
right.
mean, that's probably one of the greatest defenses I've ever seen. I mean, we talk about the Bears of the '85, we talk about the 2000s of the
Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens. You better start talking about the Houston Texans defense in that same regard.
It's hard to argue against that. Joe, I really appreciate the time, a relative short notice today. Thanks so much. I'm sure I'll see you out and about at the team somewhere along the way. And thanks again.
Look forward to it, Ben. Thank you.